A perfect homestand ends in the perfect way. Starling Marte walks it off as the New York Mets sweep their division rival. Bye-bye, Phillies. What a Mets win.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
To all you amazing Mets fans, you're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on X at Finkelstein Ryan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. What a homestand for your New York Mets. You sweep the Phillies in a 4-game set, which is always hard to get through 4 games against the same team and come out victorious in all of them. And then your division rival comes into town, only a 2-game lead in the NL East going into this series, and a Phillies team that was playing pretty good baseball. And game after game after game, the Mets just continue to find a way to win. And it's everything. It's not just one of the best starts to a season the Mets ever had from a pitching perspective, although it is. It's great defense. It's from Lindor, Tyrone Taylor, Brandon Nimmo had a great game. Mark Vientos made an earlier. He had a great game defensively. You're seeing Baty and Acuna both do it at second base. This team just rolling that way, and that helps that pitching staff. And then you have Pete Alonso, who is off to a really special start to this season. Alonso comes up huge in extra innings where the Mets need to get a big hit, and he's down to his final strike, 0-2 count, and a perfect slider by Jordan Romano. I mean, if you look at the pitch map, you look at the strike zone, this slider that Pete Alonso hits is down and in. It's on the literal corner of the strike zone. It is perfection when it comes to a slider, but Pete is just so locked in. If you throw it in the zone, it's not a perfect pitch because you have to get that ball below the zone. You have to hope he doesn't chase it. And Pete just sticks his arm out and still rifles it to right center field to put himself in scoring position, which eventually sets up Starling Marte to walk it off. An unbelievable game by the Mets, who had to go up against one of the best pitchers in baseball, and they come out victorious. They move to 18-7 on the season. And for the first time in franchise history, they start the year 12-1 at home, as Citi Field is just becoming an absolute party. It feels like we're in the middle of the summer, if not the fall right now, where you're gearing up for a playoff push. But no, it's April. It's what's today? Wednesday? It's a Wednesday afternoon, and the crowd is rocking, and the New York Mets just keep finding ways to win. I want to take this back to the beginning of the game because the Phillies had their stopper on the mound, Zack Wheeler. And the way Zack Wheeler was pitching, if the Mets didn't work counts, if they were chasing, if they didn't have a ton of discipline early and throughout this game, Zack Wheeler's maybe able to go an extra inning. Maybe instead of facing Jordan Romano in the 10th, Jose Alvarado, who looked really good, is able to pitch the 9th and the 10th instead of the 8th and the 9th. But instead, you have this Mets lineup that just works Zack Wheeler the first inning. You had your first 3 batters, Lindor, Soto, and Alonso. They see 20 pitches from Zack Wheeler. They don't score there. Second inning, we got to talk about Brett Baty. Mark Vientos gets a leadoff single. Jesse Winker and Tyrone Taylor both strike out. Baty comes up with 2 outs. And I'm just thinking, man, Baty, when he's at his best, he's able to hit fastballs. And can he gear up for something hard up in the zone and find his way to a barrel? And he did exactly that. It was a cutter, not a fastball. But Brett Baty puts an amazing swing on it and crushes it. 113.9 miles per hour off of the bat, 425 feet for a 2-run homer. Go to Mike Mayer's Twitter, and he tweeted out a stat. I don't have it in front of me now, but it was something along the lines of that velocity and that location for Zack Wheeler. He's thrown that pitch however many times, and only 3 times has the ball ever been hit that hard. It just shows you how difficult it is to get on Zack Wheeler. And Brett Baty, with his roster spot potentially in jeopardy, which is what we'll be talking about on tomorrow's show as Jeff McNeil and Álvarez are coming back on Friday. Baty comes through in that huge moment, and those 2 runs hold up all game long. And yet, I don't think it was a bad offensive game by the Mets, because even though they didn't score after that, they continued to make it difficult on Zack Wheeler. Even when he struck out the side in the 6th inning, his final inning of work, there was no 3-pitch strikeout. Those guys were still able to hold on just enough to, I think, work him 17 pitches, and he got over 107, and the Mets were able to get him out of the game. I talked about it going into this series. The two keys I had for the Mets to win this series: number one was to survive the early innings against that good Phillies lineup, to have your starting pitchers navigate those innings, not give up crooked numbers, and give your bullpen a chance and turn it into a game against the bullpens. And the other side of that coin was getting the starting pitchers out of the game for the Phillies and getting into that bullpen. I think the Mets win this game because they get Wheeler out in the 6th inning. And David Peterson did a really nice job. I don't think this was his best start of the season at all. He gave up 8 hits, but he found his way through it. And part of that was just great defense. Worked around one single in the 1st inning. Francisco Lindor made a great play to end that inning, going into the hole. Quick throw to second base. Brett Baty picks it out. So that was a big play. 2nd inning, you see Peterson gives up a pair of singles with 1 out. Mark Vientos makes an error on what could have been a double play ball to get out of the inning. But Peterson gets a fly ball to shallow left, I believe. The runner didn't tag. Sets up, a situation where he can get out of the bases with a jam. Lindor, again, a force out at second base, ends that inning. So just really clutch pitching right there by David Peterson in an inning that could have gone the other way. In the 4th inning, you saw Brandon Nimmo make a – actually, no. 4th inning was Vientos' play. 4th inning was Vientos making the diving play on a low line drive. Nimmo made a diving catch in the 5th. Peterson did give up some runs in that 4th inning, 4 singles allowed in that frame to give up those 2 runs. But he was able to get Bryce Harper out with some runners on to get out of that jam, able to pitch a clean 5th inning. 6th inning, Brandon Nimmo makes a leaping catch. So in the 5th, he came in on 1. 6th, leaps and catches 1. And it was a situation, too, where you had David Peterson, who is taxed at that point. So you have to go to the bullpen after that catch, and he gives up a base hit, his 8th of the day. Who's coming on? Huascar Braziman, after pitching yesterday. And you see the Mets really exhaust their bullpen in this one. I don't know if Reed Garrett wasn't available, but Braziman pitching, without rest. Butto, a lot of these guys just coming in and doing their job. Gritty performance. Braziman gets through that 6th, 7th inning ground ball where Brett Baty makes a great play going into the hole. Danny Young comes on, has his best outing of the season, strikes out Harper and Schwarber. All of that brought us to a tie game. Scores at 2-2 going into the late innings. And I think it's just a testament to the Mets for hanging in there against Zack Wheeler when your starting pitcher, David Peterson, didn't have his best stuff, but fought his way through it, and the defense just picked him up the whole time. Peterson only walked 1, so he didn't hurt himself at all, and you're able to win it in the late innings. I want to recap what happened late in just a minute here, but first, a quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Supply House. Get supplies from the site that's made for skilled trades. Supply House, whether in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order plumbing and all the different supplies you need, all those products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need, delivered fast from coast to coast. If you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. All right, so here we go. Late innings, tie game. José Butto comes on, has a shaky 8th inning, issued 2 walks, which sandwiched a strikeout and a ground out. So you had 2 runners on, 2 out. Butto gives up a single to right field, and Juan Soto comes up firing, makes a strong one-hop throw home, but it was a little bit offline, It bounced a little bit behind home plate, so Hayden Singer had to field it on the hop and then just laid out and made a tag at home to get out Nick Castellanos. The Phillies took too long to challenge the play. I think they would have still had Castellanos out at the plate, but it was one mistake there by the Phillies to not get that challenge in. But also, you have to credit every single player on this roster to win this game, basically. Here's Hayden Singer, who didn't do much offensively, called a good game, but that's his big moment, making that tag. And that's probably the last time we see Hayden Singer for a little bit because Francisco Álvarez will be back. But you need every single guy to step up and come through. That was a big moment. Jose Alvarado comes in the 8th inning, as I mentioned, looked nasty, needed 9 pitches to get 3 outs. Edwin Díaz matched him on the top of the 9th inning. Brandon Nimmo makes a good play on a ball that was heading towards the corner. He then gets a big strikeout against Trey Turner before getting Bryce Harper to ground out. Bottom of the 9th, the Mets got a little 2-out rally going as Luis Angel Acuna was able to find a hole up the middle on a ground ball. Luis Torrens comes in to pinch hit, falls behind the count. Then he shoots one the other way with a big hole on that right side to put 2 runners on for Lindor. Unfortunately, he grounded out. So that brought us to extra innings. Edwin Díaz stays in, strikes out Kyle Schwarber, but then Bryce Harper heads up base running, steals third, and Nick Castellanos gets a base hit to give the Phillies a lead, and then Diaz exit with an injury. I'm not sure what the injury was, if it was a hip injury, what was going on. It's unfortunate because he actually was throwing the ball pretty good up until Castellanos was able to get that hit. And then also to make matters worse, he stepped off 3 times in a matter of like 30 seconds, a boneheaded play. The Mets got lucky that it was originally ruled a balk, and then it came back, and they decided that because he was exiting with an injury, they would put the runner on first. Ultimately, doesn't matter because Max Kranick, who was still probably needing to get loose, walked the next batter anyway. So you had runners at first and second. He then gives up a base hit to load the bases, and the Mets are on the verge of losing this series because one hit, even a sac fly, who knows, that could have put the game out of reach. Instead, you get a shallow fly ball to Tyrone Taylor. The runner doesn't go, and then another fly ball, and Kranick able to walk the tightrope and keep the game close, which led to that bottom of the 10th inning that I started the show with, where you have Pete Alonso come up after a Juan Soto ground out with 1 out, runner on second base, behind the count, comes through with that massive double. And then after Nimmo's intentionally walked and Mark Vientos strikes out, 2 outs, Starling Marte ends it with an incredible broken bat base hit, and this team just shows they got some magic going right now. And it was an amazing series victory to not just beat the Phillies, but to beat them handedly and to take that offense and really mitigate them the whole series. I mean, they're able to score a run in extra innings, but that's an unearned run for Edwin Díaz because it's a ghost runner that comes in to score. And it felt like they needed that ghost runner to get another one across. So just great pitching by the Mets and their bullpen, which continues to be such a backbone for this team. And you just can't talk enough about Pete Alonso. I mean, this guy is legitimately an MVP candidate. And I think going into this season, if I would have told you, and I think I actually did, I think one of my bold predictions going into the year was the Mets would have 2 guys finish in the top 5 for MVP voting. You would have assumed, as I explained before the season, that the 2 guys that I was thinking about was Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor. Right now, it's, yes, Francisco Lindor playing great baseball, but Pete Alonso has just been absolutely sensational. I mean, there's nothing else you can say about it. The Mets are not 18-7 without Pete. I don't know what they would be without Pete, but Pete Alonso, every single time the Mets need a hit, he comes through, and it's not always the home runs. He's gotten those. He's gotten the 6 homers, but it's the clutch hits. It's shortening up. It's covering everything in the zone. I mean, this guy looks better than he ever has. I mean, even the rookie season, when he hit the 53 home runs, he didn't look like this. Even 2022, when he drove in 131 runs and did come through and a lot of 2-out opportunities for runners in scoring position, it wasn't this. This is one of the best hitters in baseball. Not just one of the best power hitters, one of the best hitters, period. He's been remarkable. And that's such a huge hit because the momentum was on the Phillies side going into that bottom of the 10th inning. It really was. They were able to score a run, and Jordan Romano gets Juan Soto out, so you're already in a good spot, and he gets ahead on Pete, and Pete did not look good in the first 2 swings of that at bat. But here he is in a big moment, and he's able to come through on a tough pitch to hit. That's the thing that really gets me too. It's not like he got a hanging slider and did something with it. No, it was a really good slider, and he puts a great swing on it, and the Mets are able to get that time running. That just takes all the pressure off, and Starling Marte able to come through to walk it off. But really, the key thing for me is Pete Alonso's hit before that. It sets the stage for Marte to come through. Just a remarkable series for this Mets team. A remarkable homestand. 7-0 at home in one. That was, they said, with the Mets at one point in 2015 played 10 consecutive games at home and went 10-0. It's the only other time that they've done that in franchise history. And if the Mets had 3 more games to play, if they were playing the Nationals at Citi Field over the next 3 days, I wouldn't be surprised if they would be able to match that, honestly, because that is how good they're playing at Citi Field. 12-1 to start the year. It's just remarkable. And as I talked about in the show this morning, it puts the Mets more and more out front here as the team to beat in the National League East. I don't know how you can look at this division right now and say, oh, well, the Braves are still the favorite, even though they've started off horribly, or the Phillies are still the favorite because of their starting pitching. The Mets got a 5-game lead in the division. And sure, there's a lot of season left. We saw the Mets narrow, a huge gap from June on last year. The Phillies and the Braves had the ability to be that level of a team down the stretch. But at the same time, the Mets just keep on winning. And if they keep winning, they're going to be able to put these guys away early. Because if they can continue to win series after series after series, they're not going to give up their lead. They're not. And they're going to be able to really dominate this division wire to wire. It's been an incredible start because you still have another level to get to. That's the crazy thing. This team's about to get better on Friday. They're going to bring 2 more players back into the fold that can legitimately help them. And they still have 2 more really good starting pitchers waiting the wings on the IL. If they ever want to grab Daniel Nunez for AAA, he's ready to go. But sorry, you can't do it because right now your bullpen doesn't have a weak spot. Even a Danny Young, who has not looked great this year, here he was in a massive moment in a tie game, and he strikes out Harper and Schwarber. It's just incredible baseball to watch. And now the Mets, over their last 130 games, are 83-47. 83-47 over 130 games. Let me do the quick math on that pace over a 162. You're winning 67% of your games at that point. That's a 108 win pace. The Mets have been playing at that rate since June of last year. It's just constant production in every facet. The defense, your star hitters coming through, your role players having big moments, and your pitching. And this year, the pitching has just taken a whole other step forward. Where last year, this was a team that was largely carried by their rotation. And yes, their rotation has been awesome this year. But last season, their rotation, you were seeing Quintana, Severino, Minaya, Peterson go 6, 7 innings. This year, it's just get through the first 5 with a lead. Maybe you can get through the 6 or at least get an out or 2 of the 6. But worst case scenario, if there's a jam in the 6th inning, someone's coming out of that bullpen, they're going to get a couple of outs and they're going to bridge the gap. And then all of a sudden, in the late innings, the Mets, can come through in a big way. And whether it's needing to get the clutch hit or just holding on to tight leads, they're getting the job done. So I could not be more impressed with what the Mets did throughout this series. 3 pretty solid starts across the board. The bullpen was lights out outside of a Bryson Stott 3-run homer. The Mets were trying to get 3 innings out of Crackin in that first game, but he ends up faltering, getting some hits, and Diaz gives up the homer, and it didn't matter. They held on to that one, and they completely shut the Phillies down in the second game. And in this one, they were able to keep them at bay until the extra innings, and then the Mets were able to come through with a couple hits when they needed it. So huge win for this Mets team. I want to briefly get into where this roster goes because I'm going to spend a lot more time on it tomorrow, but I want to go through that in just a minute because there's going to be some decisions to be made. So we'll do that in just a minute. First, though, another quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with the Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios, one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you feel fuller, longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days, whether I'm just snacking at my desk, if I'm on a road trip, or if I'm on the golf course. I love to throw this in my bag whenever I hit the links. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein providing all 9 essential amino acids. Get snacking and cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right. Stay up to date with all of your latest in the world of sports. You can check out Locked On Sports Today, streaming 24/7 on YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube today, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. So, where are the Mets at this point? So, you look at this roster and what they've done. You've got 2 young players in Acuna and Baty that are showing a bunch of flashes. Acuna, there's no doubt about the fact that he's going to stay on this team. He's going to keep getting playing time. You're seeing the impact, his ability to come off the bench and make an impact as either a pinch runner or a pinch hitter, or in there for defense in the games that he doesn't start. And when he starts, he's lights out up the middle. So I don't think there's any question about that. But the real debate is going to be over the next 24 hours. What do the Mets do with the Jose Azocar, Brett Baty roster spot? Who grabs it as Jeff McNeil comes back? And I do think that home run from Brett Baty was a moment that might have kept him on this roster. It's crazy how the season works out. There's always these narratives that seem to play out at the perfect time. So here's Brett Baty, who has struggled this year against the fastballs, cutters, hard pitches, and that's his bread and butter. When Brett Baty is right, he is catching up to velocity and he is hitting for a high average, and that's where he could find his power, and we haven't seen him homer this year. So for in that spot, Brett Baty to hit that home run, it was massive, and it was a towering shot. It leaves an impact. I joked on Twitter after I hit it, I retweeted the highlight because Brett Baty points in the dugout. I said he was pointing at Jose Azocar saying, "That's your ticket to Syracuse, bye-bye," because I really think that moment potentially saved Brett Baty's spot. Jose Azocar played pretty well in his couple of games up. But to me, if you're looking at this roster, Brett Baty offers more than Jose Azocar. Azocar is a worse version of Tyrone Taylor. And I don't think that you need 2 guys filling that same role. I think the Mets have been kind of stuck in that since last year. Harrison Bader and Tyrone Taylor, it was good because they both provide you the great defense and you were able to ride the hot hand. So in that respect, it worked out, but not necessarily complementing skill sets in center field. Azocar is just a worse version of that. And Jose Siri was maybe a little bit better, but still it was very similar skill sets. So now if you do send Azocar down and you bring McNeil up and you play McNeil in center field, which I'm starting to really warm up to that idea, because you put him in center field, you have him take the first 3 at bats of the game, then you put Tyrone Taylor in off the bench. I think that's a way to go about it. And you keep Acuna's defense at second base, and you also keep that flexibility to put Brett Baty at second base on occasion if you like a matchup. And then Baty can always grab a start from Vientos at third, and you keep Vientos a little more fresh, and you shield Vientos from some bad matchups. I think the Mets can find playing time for all these guys, and with Brett Baty in particular, there's nothing left to prove in AAA. If Acuna wasn't thriving, I could make a case for Acuna going down and playing every day because he could develop more in AAA. Brett Baty, he goes to AAA, he hits 400. No one's going to care, the Mets or another team. And Baty, I don't think it's a physical thing. I mean, sure, if you were concerned about Vientos and you think in a month you might need to make Brett Baty your everyday third baseman, then sure, you could send Baty down and maybe you get a swing in a better place if you actually thought you're going to make that switch. But I don't think you are. I think Vientos is going to be fine. So then the question is, does Baty gain more in AAA, or does he gain more getting these, occasional starts and being a left-handed option off the bench? It just gives Carlos Mendoza the ability to really play chess with his roster, where if you get in a game like this, you had the flexibility to, let's just say, Baty was on the bench and you wanted him to pinch hit for Terrence. Terrence wasn't swinging it well. This is just a hypothetical down the line. You have the ability to be so flexible with all the pieces on your roster. And I really think that it makes the most sense to stick in that direction. And it, again, will open up, I think, an opportunity to keep Baty progressing. And I think also, we get so kind of locked into, the Mets should be this rigid with their lineup. They have a DH platoon of Winker and Marte, and that's going to be the DH every day. And Vientos is an everyday player along with Lindor and Alonso and Soto and Nimmo. And Nimmo's another guy that's got to be in there every day. Well, really, over the course of a season, giving Nimmo that day off could be a good thing, where you slide McNeil into left field. Giving Vientos a day, or giving Vientos a day at DH and having Baty play third, that's another way to just keep everybody fresh, to really play matchups, and to shield guys if there is a matchup that just doesn't favor their strengths. Why have Mark Vientos go out there and go 0 for 4, 3 strikeouts in a game if it can be Baty in that spot? So I really think that's the direction the Mets are going to go here, and it's going to make them a more complete team. I really believe that to be the case. But regardless, you have a team right now that is 18-7 through 25 games, and they still haven't gotten their lineup going in a way that we still believe that they will eventually, where this can be a top 10 offense in baseball, because Juan Soto, whether it's all hitting into bad luck or also just not quite being comfortable yet, he hasn't been Juan Soto. And so that's still that version of the Mets that we haven't seen just yet. And so that is waiting for you. Brandon Nimmo is going to be better. Mark Vientos is going to be better. And Pete Alonso might not be OPSing over 1,000 all year, but even if he fades a little bit, those other guys are going to be able to fill right in. And I really don't think that any struggles that Alonso has this year are going to be anywhere near as prolonged as we've seen in the past, because it just seems like he has himself in such a good spot right now. So we'll see how the puzzle pieces all fit together. I still don't know, what's going to happen with Edwin Díaz. Is he going to be heading to the IL? If he is, we'll definitely be covering that to close out this week here, because that would be obviously big news. I don't even know who would fill in to the closer role. I think maybe it'd be closer by committee, and you got some Ryan Stanek, maybe some AJ Minter, some Reed Garrett in there. But hopefully this was just some type of a minor tweak, and Diaz will be back in there over the weekend. Mets get a well-deserved day off on Thursday after how many days in a row did they play? Was it 12 games in a row, 13 games in a row? The last off day was 2 Thursdays ago. So yeah, 13 games in a row. And what did they come out of it? They came out of it, let's say they had a 500 road trip and then perfect at home. So 10-3. I mean, it's just crazy what they're doing at Citi Field. It really is. And unfortunately, I don't live in the New York area, so I can't get out to the ballpark very often. But if you do, don't sleep on going to these games, because they look like an absolute blast. And I just think even watching it from home, I mean, the energy that's in that ballpark, it's contagious. You feel it from the couch. You really do. So I can't wait to see the Mets get back home. But first, 4 games in DC, the rare Friday to Monday series. So we'll be looking ahead at that on the show tomorrow. We'll be talking a little bit more about Brett Baty. If he really did save his roster spot, we'll spend more time on that. And then, of course, we will look a little bit towards the farm system over the next couple of days with no game played on Thursday, to try to keep you all posted on all the latest going on the farm. I appreciate all of you for tuning in to this live stream after the game, or if you're catching the recap of this or the replay of this later on. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. If you are watching right now, hit that subscribe button on YouTube, throw a like on this video, leave a comment with your biggest takeaway from what you've seen on the Mets this season. And I will be back with the show tomorrow morning. It'll be up on YouTube at 6 a.m. on your podcast feeds. Before that, as always, thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen or your first watch every day. Now, for your second watch, check out Locked On Sports Today, keeping you up to date on all the latest in the world of sports. Got the NBA playoffs and the NHL playoffs going on, so they'll be covering everything going on that front, as well as the MLB season at the beginning here. As always, make sure you check out Locked On Sports Today, streaming 24/7 on YouTube.